which trades as Wigton Energy, and chairman of the 2024 annual general meeting of the company. We want to express a special welcome to our shareholders, both physically and online. It's good to see so many of you in person and online. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we want to share with you the company's performance for the financial year ended March 31st, 2024. And our shareholders will of course vote on matters related to the business of the company. It's not on my running order, but I want to recognize our directors who are seated in the front here. They will be introduced at a later time. Also the team that's here with us, and PricewaterhouseCoopers is here with us. They'll be playing a part, so welcome. Ms. Shanique Clacken, our legal officer and company secretary, will perform the function of secretary of today's AGM. Ms. Clacken, please advise if a quorum is present.
Chairman, I so confirm that a quorum of 3 shareholders, as stipulated by the company's articles of incorporation, has been met.
All right, thank you, Shanique. The meeting is now called to order at 11:10, right? 11:10 a.m. And I ask that you join us in prayer, which will be done by Director Johnson. You.
Let us pray. Father of love, we thy unworthy children come born before thee at this time. You know the occasion. You have asked us to prosper and be in good health as our soul prospereth. Wigton is a vehicle to create generational wealth for our people. May you endow our minds with the understanding and the will and the courage to do what is right, to grow the business so that thy people can see the wealth that we long stand for and wait for. As we embarked upon this, our AGM, we are asking thee to touch the workers in the field, guide them, protect them. Touch the directors, give them insight, wisdom, that they may lead aright. And the shareholders, as they put their resources together to grow this business as we move ahead. We want to thank you as we wait upon you. In your precious name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Hugh. In keeping with the company's articles of incorporation, the meeting is being held in a hybrid manner with a limited number of shareholders present in person and shareholders present online with live streaming on both YouTube and Facebook. In light of the hybrid nature of the meeting, I'll ask our secretary to take us through the guidelines for the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We kindly ask that you adhere to the following protocols. As is customary, during the meeting, shareholders or their duly appointed proxies will be able to move and second motions and vote once motions have been moved and seconded. Shareholders who are present in the room, you are to raise your hands to move or second a motion and to indicate your vote once a motion is moved. Shareholders online, after each motion is moved and seconded, please vote by selecting the for or against button that will appear on your screens. 45 seconds will be provided for the casting of votes on each motion. Non-shareholders are not permitted to move or second motions or to vote on motions. Once voting is completed, the results on each motion will be announced. 45 minutes have now been allotted for the Q&A segment of the meeting. You are encouraged to submit your questions by way of email to wigton.info@wwfja.com. That's wigton.info@wwfja.com, or by clicking the Q&A option to the right of your screens and type in your questions in the text box that will appear. During the Q&A segment, we will take the questions in the order that they have been received. We will first answer any questions received via email or on the virtual meeting platform prior to the meeting. Then we will alternate with questions from persons present in the room, as well as questions from the email or the virtual platform. We encourage you to be brief when asking your questions, so others may be afforded the opportunity to ask questions. In this regard, each person will be allowed a maximum of 2 questions. Every effort will be made to answer all questions posed, time permitting. For those questions that are not answered during the meeting, the responses will be posted on our website within a week of the meeting. Shareholders online, please note that to avoid undue disruption, your microphones have been disabled. We therefore invite you to use the chat box at the bottom of your screens to interact with each other and to make comments. Questions should not be posted in the chat box. Shareholders online, in the event of any technical challenges, you may reach out to our team by clicking the help icon to the left of your screens for assistance. Additionally, if we encounter any technical difficulties with the webcast during the meeting, please remain logged on and we will resume as soon as practicable. We note also that in the event that there is an emergency that requires us to leave the building, we should all follow the instructions of ushers who will direct us to the nearest exit. The meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be available online and the link uploaded to our website so you may access same. Forward-looking statements may be made in the presentations today. Please note that the actual results may differ. Every effort has been made to facilitate your participation in the most convenient and efficient way, given the dual format of the meeting. We look forward to a successful meeting.
Thank you, Shanique. The amended and restated notice of this AGM, which advised of the hybrid format, as well as all the necessary information on the matters for consideration at the meeting, was duly given in accordance with prescribed requirements and published on Wigton's website and in the Gleaner and the Jamaica Observer on September 18, 2024. An advisory was also sent via email to the shareholders' email addresses on record. With your permission, we will take the notice as read. Thank you, shareholders. I note for the benefit of our shareholders that the minutes of the 2023 AGM held on March 22, 2024 are available and may be accessed from the company's website. The presenters at today's AGM will be Mr. Gary Barrow, our Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Sean Treasure, our Chief Financial Officer, and Mrs. Tricia Ann Smith da Silva, partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers. We extend our sincere appreciation to fellow directors who have dedicated quality time to oversee the affairs of the company at the board level, as well as through the various subcommittees which support the board. Present with us are Mr. Omar Azan, who is the chairman of the Nominations, Compensation and Human Resources Committee. And our directors are in the front here. Mr. Hugh Johnson is beside him. And then we have Mrs. Mariam McIntosh Robinson, chairperson of the Finance and Investment Committee, and Mr. Dan Theok, chairman of the Audit and Risk Committee. Joining us online are Mrs. M. Georgia Gibson Henlin, Chairperson of the Corporate Governance Committee, Mr. Joseph Issa, Mrs. Alison Filbert, and Mrs. Jacqueline Stewart Leckler. Shareholders, the audited financial statements for the financial year ended March 31, 2024, and the directors and auditors' reports thereon were circulated with the amended and restated notice convening the meeting. I now would like to invite Mrs. Tricia Ann Smith da Silva, partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, to present the auditor's report.
Good morning, Chairman, Directors, Executive Management, and shareholders. The Independent Auditor's Report. To the shareholders of Wigton Windfarm Limited, report on the audit of the financial statements. Our opinion. In our opinion, the financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of Wigton Windfarm Limited, the company, as at 31 March 2024, and of its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with IFRS accounting standards and with the requirements of the Jamaican Companies Act. What we have audited: the company's financial statements comprise the statement of financial position as at 31 March 2024, the statement of comprehensive income for the year then ended, the statement of changes in equity for the year then ended, the statement of cash flows for the year then ended, and the notes to the financial statements comprising material accounting policy information and other explanatory information. Basis for opinion. We conducted our audits in accordance with International Standards on Auditing, ISOs. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements section of our report. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Independence. We are independent of the company in accordance with the International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independent Standards, issued by the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, IESBA Code. We have fulfilled our ethical responsibilities in accordance with the IESBA Code. Our audit approach. Audit scope. As part of designing our audit, we determined materiality and assessed the risk of material misstatement in the financial statements. In particular, we considered where management made subjective judgments, for example, in respect of significant accounting estimates that involved making assumptions and considering future events that are inherently uncertain. As in all of our audits, we also addressed the risk of management override of internal controls, including, among other matters, consideration of whether there was evidence of bias that represented a risk of material misstatement due to fraud. We tailored the scope of our audit in order to perform sufficient work to enable us to provide an opinion on the financial statements as a whole, taking into account the structure of the company, the accounting processes and controls, and the industry in which the company operates. Key audit matters. Key audit matters are those matters that, in our professional judgment, were of most significance in our audit of the financial statements of the current period. These matters were addressed in the context of our audit of the financial statements as a whole and informing our opinion thereon, and we do not provide a separate opinion on these matters. Key audit matter: impairment of investment in associates. Refer to notes 20, 4C, and 12 to the financial statements for disclosures of related accounting, policies, judgments, estimates, and balances. Investment in associate, accounts for 117 million, or 1.13% of total assets of the company as at 31 March 2024, which represents a 21% holding of Flash Holdings Limited, Flash. Management considered impairment indicators such as the fact that the carrying value of the investment in Flash exceeds the company's share of the net assets of Flash, and accordingly performed an impairment analysis over the investment in associate balance at the statement of financial position date. The company was assisted by external valuation experts in this process and utilized a discounted cash flow model to determine the value in use. The value in use was compared to the carrying value of the investment in associate to determine if there was any impairment. We focus on this area due to the magnitude of the balance and because the impairment assessment involves significant judgment and estimation, which is sensitive to changes in key assumptions. The key assumptions were assessed by management as being discount rate and terminal value growth rate. Management's assessment as at 31 March 2024 identified no impairment of investment in associates. How our audit addressed the key audit matter? Our approach, with the assistance of our valuation experts, to addressing the matter involved in the following procedures, amongst others. Assess the competence and capability of management's valuation expert. Obtain an understanding of the process used by management to determine the value in use of the investment in associates. Testing management's discounted cash flow model and the valuation assumptions and inputs by comparing the 31 March 2024 base year financial information to current year results and compared previous forecasts to actual results to assess the performance of the business and accuracy of management's forecasting. Assessing the reasonableness of management's forecasting by comparing the forecasted information to historical information, industry, and independent economic data. Developing independent assumptions using a range of parameters based on available market inputs and historical information and compared to management's discount and terminal value growth rate, and sensitizing the parameters to evaluate the impact on assumptions and overall discounted cash flows. Tested the mathematical accuracy of management's discounted cash flows by reperforming the underlying calculations. Based on the results of the procedures performed, management's assumptions and judgments relating to the impairment of investment in associate, in our view, were not unreasonable. Other information. Management is responsible for the other information. The other information comprises the annual report, but does not include the financial statements and/or auditor's report thereon, which is expected to be made available to us after the date of this auditor's report. Our opinion on the financial statements does not cover the other information, and we will not express any form of assurance conclusion thereon. In connection with our audit of the financial statements, our responsibility is to read the other information identified above when it becomes available, and in doing so, consider whether the other information is materially inconsistent with the financial statements or our knowledge obtained in the audit, or otherwise appears to be materially misstated. When we read the audit report, if we conclude that there is a material misstatement therein, we are required to communicate the matter to those charged with governance. Responsibilities of management and those charged with governance for the financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements that give a true and fair view in accordance with IFRS accounting standards and with the requirements of the Jamaican Companies Act, and for such internal control as management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. In preparing the financial statements, management is responsible for assessing the company's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing, as applicable, matters related to going concern, and using the going concern basis of accounting unless management either intends to liquidate the company or to cease operations or has no realistic alternative but to do so. Those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the company's financial reporting process. Auditors' responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with ISOs will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if, individually or in the aggregate, they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decision of users taken on the basis of these financial statements. As part of an audit in accordance with ISOs, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We also identify and assess the risk of material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks, and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omission, misrepresentations, or the override of internal controls. Obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the company's internal control. Evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of accounting estimates and related disclosures made by management. Conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of the going concern basis of accounting, and based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material uncertainty exists related to events or conditions that may cast significant doubt on the company's ability to continue as a going concern. If we conclude that a material uncertainty exists, we are required to draw attention in our auditor's report to the related disclosures in the financial statements, or, if such disclosures are inadequate, to modify our opinion. Our conclusions are based on the audit evidence obtained up to the date of our auditor's report. However, future events or conditions may cause the company to cease to continue as a going concern. Evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of the financial statements, including the disclosures, and whether the financial statements represent the underlying transactions and events in a manner that achieves fair presentation. We communicate with those charged with governance regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiencies in internal control that we identified during our audit. We also provide those charged with governance with a statement that we have complied with relevant ethical requirements regarding independence, and to communicate with them our relationship and other matters that may reasonably be thought to bear on our independence, and where applicable, actions taken to eliminate threats or safeguards applied. From the matters communicated with those charging with governance, we determine those matters that were of most significance in the audit of the financial statements of the current period and are therefore the key audit matters. We describe these matters in our auditor's report unless law or regulation precludes public disclosure about the matter, or when, in extremely rare circumstances, we determine that a matter should not be communicated in our report because the adverse consequences of doing so would reasonably be expected to outweigh the public interest benefits of such communication. Report on other legal and regulatory requirements. As required by the Jamaican Companies Act, we have obtained all the information and explanations which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purposes of our audit. In our opinion, proper accounting records have been kept so far as appears from our examination of those records, and the accompanying financial statements are in agreement therewith and give the information required by the Jamaican Companies Act in the manner so required. The engagement partner on the audit resulting in this independent auditor's report is Trisha Ann Smith da Silva, signed PricewaterhouseCoopers, Chartered Accountants, Kingston, Jamaica, dated 30 May 2024.
Thank you, Trisha, and I know the ICJ has been working a while to ensure that we don't have to read all of that, right? So, but that's how the process is. Our CEO, Mr. Gary Barrow, will now present on the performance of your company for the year ended March 31, 2024, and he will be joined in this presentation by the CFO, Mrs. Sean Treasure. Gary.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, and let me start by extending a warm welcome to our valued shareholders. I feel particularly honored to be here this morning to present a summary of Wigton's 2024 performance. Wigton started its operations some 20 years ago, being the first major renewables energy facility, and maintains the enviable position of being Jamaica's largest renewable energy producer and also the largest wind facility in the Caribbean. Personally, I joined the company just about 6 months ago, and I'm really very happy to be a part of a really very dynamic senior leadership team. I'd like to recognize both our present and past directors, as well as our former managing director, Erlington Barrett, who guided this organization over the past several years. We were pioneers in bringing utility-scale wind generation to Jamaica. We started operations in April 2004, when wind accounted for only 0.02% of Jamaica's electricity supply and was generally considered experimental and peripheral. Today, wind energy accounts for more than 10% of installed capacity. We are in an era of clean energy and sustainable development, an era of excitement and change for Wigton and indeed for Jamaica. Jamaica's updated draft energy policy calls for 50% of Jamaica's electricity to be generated by renewable energy by 2030. These are ambitious targets set by the government of Jamaica in the context of climate change targets, the need for lower dependence on foreign imported fossil fuel, and to provide a greater level of diversification of fuel sources, ultimately leading to lower consumer prices and to ensure energy security. This is only possible because of the pace at which renewables technology is advancing. In particular, solar panels and battery prices have fallen precipitously, now affording a greater level of participation by Jamaicans and allowing for low overall prices to consumers. This is important because electricity impacts every single aspect of our lives. Like last year, like many other organizations, Wigton continued to experience the impact of the post-COVID era, particularly with limited availability of spares and long lead times for material. Notwithstanding, the company had solid financial results for the year, ended March 31st, 2024. While total revenue for the financial year of 2.37 billion represented a decrease over the previous year due to lower wind regime, the company reported a record net profit of 839 million. The overall net profit was due to good operational management by the Wigton team and the application of an income tax rate of 25% as of the 2023 tax year, following the announcement by the finance minister that the income tax rate applicable to entities with more than 75% of their business in renewable energy would be adjusted to 25%, down from 33.33%. Wigton played an important role in this achievement, and this is a benefit that Wigton will continue to enjoy in the future. Total liabilities declined by 1.34 billion or 20.5% to 5.21 billion compared to the previous year's liability of 6.55 billion. Influenced primarily by Wigton's continuing to pay down its debt as a part of its prudent financial management. Dividends totaled 65.37 million was paid during the year ended March 31st, 2024, compared to 60.05 in the year ended March 31st, 2023, an increase of just about 9%. For this, I want to acknowledge the Wigton's hard-working senior management team and those team members at the Windfarm in Rosehill, Manchester, who oversees the daily plant operations, which represent a significant source of our revenue portfolio. Like other large-scale energy producers, Wigton did not escape the impact of Hurricane Beryl. We suffered some damage to our warehouse facilities and a number of wind turbines, particularly Wigton Phase 1. I must again stop here and recognize the dedicated team of engineers at the plant and our support staff who worked around the clock to restore production to over 85%. Today, we are awaiting the remaining parts and aim to be over 92% within the next few weeks. Our insurers are still in the process of doing the necessary assessment. As I said before, the energy market is changing rapidly. Wigton Energy must remain constantly open to new opportunities and new ways of doing business. As we were pioneers in the beginning, we'll continue to bring the mindset of charting new paths and exploring new opportunities in the renewable market. We are deeply committed to not only being the driving force in the transition to a fossil-free society, but also being the leaders. In this regard, we are very pleased with being pre-awarded 50 megawatt of the recent 100 megawatt renewable energy tender by the General Procurement Entity. And we remain optimistic that we will be ultimately awarded this. And we are also very pleased with being provided with a new generation license to repower the operations at Wigton 1, a total of 20.7 megawatts. Going forward, Wigton will be focusing on 5 strategic pillars to ensure sustained profitability. Firstly, we want to be brilliant at the basics. We want to run the most efficient renewable plant in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. This means that we will be adopting the latest and best technologies available It means that we will be reviewing our processes and we will be reviewing our systems to ensure that we become a center of excellence for our operations. Secondly, we want to be brilliant at the basics. We want to grow through diversification. This means that we are going to look at a number of new products, a number of new services, and we have started that process already. We have started to build the capabilities, we have started to retrain our team, and we have started to infuse the organization with skills that will allow us to grow in this particular area. Let me perhaps stop to just introduce someone who has just joined recently, our Chief Commercial Officer, Norman Nair. And he will be primarily responsible for driving business development. Of course, we have traditional competence in wind operation. And it is very important that as we reposition the company to take advantage of the new technologies and as we look at new products and services, that we reposition the brand to ensure that our markets understand that we are going forward, that we are going to be much more than wind. And so we have started that process already. You would have seen that we have rebranded our trade name from Wigton Windfarm to Wigton Energy. We have engaged a marketing company to help us to reposition the brand, and you would have started to see some new billboards around Kingston. We're going to be expanding that, and you're going to see a much greater social media presence by Wigton. And finally, the fifth pillar that we're going to be focusing on is the strategic partnerships. We know that this is going to be very important. There are partners out there that bring certain competencies. We bring certain competencies. We believe that there are some mutual benefits to be derived by working with partners. And so that is going to be a very important part of our strategic orientation going forward. Wigton has adjusted its strategic intent to focus primarily on renewable energy at both the utility scale as well as at the commercial and industrial level. Additionally, Wigton will explore opportunities to invest in clean energy related projects such as in the EV market, as we are a strong believer in building a sustainable future for Jamaica. Wigton Energy's continued growth is dependent on our ability to continue to add new and different products to our portfolio. Again, growth through diversification is going to be central to our strategy going forward. Our goal is to ensure that shareholder value is sustained while continuing to introduce new revenue streams and ultimately becoming a Caribbean center of excellence and powerhouse for renewable energy production. I am looking forward to seeing Wigton Energy continue on this exciting journey. And in conclusion, I would like to extend my warm and heartfelt thanks to everyone at Wigton. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Sean Treasure, our CFO, to provide more details on the financial performance of the organization.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will now briefly outline the results for the year ended March 31st, 2024, and I will also look at the first quarter result for the period ended June 30th, 2024. Total revenue, which consists of sales and other income, was $2.37 billion, a 6.7% decrease when compared to the previous year's $2.54 billion. Our dedicated team ensured that we had a 92% availability of the wind turbines. However, we had lower sales revenue as a result of the lower production stemming from a lower wind regime. We contained expenses by implementing prudent expense management initiatives that resulted in a positive change of 0.2%. 2024's total expenses was $1.476 billion versus $1.479 billion in the previous year. Finance expense of $406 million decreased by 4.3% when compared to previous years, $424.4 million. This was as a result of the restatement of bonds A to D to bonds A and B in 2022, resulting in lower interest rates and quarterly repayment of principal, thereby a lower finance expense. Shareholders, we recorded a historical net profit for the financial year ended March 31st, 2024. Net profit was $839 million. An increase of $530.4 million, or 171.9% over the corresponding year's profit. The increase in net profit was as a result of our fervent effort to contain total expenses and finance expense, as well as the work done on the income tax rate adjustment to 25% that the company benefited from during the year. Earnings per share was 8 cents, a substantial increase of 167.7% from last year's EPS. This represented a 266.7% increase over previous year's EPS. Now let's look a little at assets, liabilities, and equity. There was a slight decline of 5.1% in total assets in 2024 financial year. This was as a result of depreciation. However, as Wigton Phase 1 is repowered and new plants are implemented, this is expected to change. Cash and cash equivalent, a critical component of total assets, stood at $3.9 billion. Total liabilities decreased by 20.6%, or $1.4 billion. As at March 2024, total liabilities were $5.2 billion from $6.6 billion in the previous year. This decrease was driven by the quarterly repayment of principal on the bonds, as well as the reduction in the deferred tax liabilities because of the change in the income tax rate mentioned earlier. Shareholders' equity at the close of the year stood at $5.2 billion, reflecting an 18.2% increase from the previous year equity of $4.4 billion. I will now move to the first quarter report for the period ended June 30th, 2024. We had a very encouraging first quarter results. Total revenue for the period was $712.1 million, representing a $92.2 million or 14.9% increase when compared to the $619.9 million earned in the previous year. This was mainly because of the improved sales revenue earned from a higher wind regime for the quarter. Total expenses for the period amounted to $398.6 million, representing a 1.6% decrease, as we continued initiatives to ensure prudent expense management during the period. We continued to report the favorable result of the refinancing of the bonds. Finance expenses were $92.5 million, a 13.6% decrease when compared to the previous period, $107 million. Net profit for the period was $165.8 million, an increase of $97.4 million or 142.5% over the similar period last year. The increase in net profit is because of the increase in production that I mentioned earlier. And of course, earnings per share for the period was approximately 1.5% compared to the 0.6 cents in the previous year. This represents 250% of the previous year's EPS. And finally, shareholders, as you are aware, a total of $102.4 million was declared as dividends on June 28, 2024, which was paid on July 29, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes my presentation, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary and Sean. Shareholders, you still have a lot to be thankful for. This is in an environment, a difficult economic environment of increasing interest rates or elevated interest rates over the period. And in a discussion yesterday with Gary and Sean, we saw that the year-to-date share price for Wigton was actually a 31% increase since the start of the year. And being nudged a lot by our committee chairman, we actually increased the percentage that we paid out profits and dividends. So I said down there saying yes, because he's the main cheerleader for that. But it is all about the returns for our shareholders. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will now take the next 45 minutes to answer any questions you have related to the financial statements, the presentations by our CEO and CFO, and the performance of your company. Shareholders in the room, please remember what our secretary said. Please also remember to raise your hands to indicate if you wish to ask a question. Once acknowledged, introduce yourselves and be brief to allow others the opportunity to ask questions, and we will do our best to respond to your question during the time allotted. We will begin with the questions received prior to the meeting and ask Shanique just to give us a few of them, and then I see some hands were raised there, and there are some hands online raised, right? Is there?
Sure, Chair, yes. So, shareholders, we will begin with the questions that we received prior to the meeting. So questions that were received online, primarily from Matthew Preston. Can you provide an update on the performance of existing projects and their impact on revenues?
So thank you, and I'm really very pleased when I hear questions about the several projects that we are pursuing right now. I'm going to ask our Deputy CEO, Michelle Chin, to give some more details on the status of those projects.
Thank you, Gary. Everybody can hear me? Okay, so Wigton has projects outside of our wind farm operations. Hearing it?
Go around the mic, yeah.
Oh, I was using the other one, but okay. Yes, we have projects outside. of the wind farm operations, mainly in our solar initiatives. So we have two main avenues for this, or two categories. We have engineering, procurement, and construction projects, EPC. What that means is that we build out solar projects for clients, and we have two under this category currently in construction: the National Irrigation Commission Essex Valley Solar and Battery Project and the Sangster International Airport Solar and Battery Project. So both of these are in construction. What this means is at the end of the financial year, we're actually implementing it through our joint venture with IEC for these solar projects. At the end of the period, we will get a share of the profits from these construction projects, and you will see them reflected in the financial statements. And the other avenue or category we have are solar leases that we offer to clients, where you basically don't have to find the money to construct the project. You can pay back over a 10-year lease period. We have two clients right now. Jamaica Inn, that project, as you see in the annual report, was constructed last year in November, and we're starting to collect monthly. And we just recently signed a Carreras new headquarters rooftop solar project, and that will be completed at the end of this month, and we will start collecting the leases. So these are our new business lines that we hope to branch out further into. And this is in addition to, as Gary mentioned, diversification, so we will still also be doing solar at the utility scale as well.
You have more?
Yes, Chair. Next question. Has the GPE given you an update on when their 168 megawatt RFP will be released? And when will you know if your 50 megawatt pre-awarded bid was successful?
No, we don't have any specific dates with respect to those two questions. So we don't know when the 168 megawatt tender will be released, and we do not have a specific date for the award.
Okay. Do you believe Wigton can handle the 50 megawatt solar farm and the upcoming RFP from the GPE simultaneously?
Michelle, you want to take this one again?
Sure. We're working with a very experienced partner for that 50 megawatt project, and it's on the turnkey basis, so they will handle all the construction. So Wigton will have the time and resources to work on the GPE bid simultaneously.
And final question that was received prior to the meeting. Can you provide, my apologies, what are Wigton's strategies for financing upcoming projects?
Sean, you want to take that one?
Okay, sure. All right. As it relates to the financing of upcoming projects, what we will do, and as we mentioned earlier, we have some cash, and this cash is really for the equity requirement. All the projects that we are involved in or have associated with, we will be required to have an equity 20% or more, so that is what the cash will be used for. However, we will also need debt financing, and what we have been doing is to be speaking with our financial partners, both locally and internationally, to ensure that at the end of the day, we're getting the best terms, or we will get the best terms and rate for those projects.
We will now alternate with questions from the room as well as questions received via email or on the platform. So first question from the room.
Morning, David Rose, shareholder. So can I follow up with that? I want to follow up on that last question you were answering, Ms. Treasurer. So you mentioned debt financing, and you gave some context as to why having such a large cash balance is necessary. So you mentioned international financing partners. So is it that the company is looking at tapping into potential energy grants or facilities from multilaterals, or have you explored the possibility of raising that kind of debt financing from, let us say, green bonds to that extent, something like to that effect?
David, the answer to your question, all that you have mentioned is a yes. We're looking at a blended approach. The green bonds, there are financial partners that have also approached us. We know of some that is coming out soon. So it is definitely a yes. And the aim, of course, is to have a blended approach so that at the end of the day, we're getting lower interest rates to finance the project.
Thanks, Ms. Treasurer. I have a follow-up query for Ms. Chenlin. Can you please go to the mic for a second? So earlier in your question and answer response segment, you're explaining about one of Wigton's new revenue streams, which is this kind of lease arrangement whereby you often finance a project and the client pays over a fixed period of time. So I heard the Carreras project a while ago. Don't remember what the name of the first client was, but the first major question is, what is the kind of timeline for these projects? Like, is the 5-year period where you want to recover your money from these clients, or a 10-year period? And also, what is the minimum amount that these clients have to approach you with to engage in these commercial size projects?
Okay, I think Gary had mentioned in his presentation we want to focus on commercial clients, so we're really looking at 50 kilowatts and above to be able to offer the lease arrangement. In terms, yes, we would meet our returns every year. We have an investment committee that looks at a hurdle rate, so we make sure that we meet our returns every year through the lease.
Is there a specific timeline though?
We offer a 10-year lease, so that's pretty attractive. Some other entities offer 5 years, so it's a win-win for the clients as well as meeting our returns.
Appreciated. Thanks again, Ms. Chenlin.
But David, let me just respond to something. From a governance perspective, one of the things that drives us is that we always look for the right mix between equity and debt to get the right return, and we have a hurdle rate. So Mariam here heads our FIC committee, which exhaustively goes through every opportunity and ensures that even the people who are proposing it, sometimes they don't get it right. Mariam, I have to tell them, right? And then Dan around there, audit, he has a very keen eye on it. So whatever this team looks at, you can be assured that what they come out with, they're going to ensure that it meets that hurdle rate and gives you the right return, which is why we have those profit numbers that we're looking at.
Thanks, Mr. Chung. Just two more questions before I divert to other shareholders. So earlier, Mr. Barrow would have spoken about the impact from Beryl, where you mentioned some damage to the turbines and so forth. Someone I know would have gone down to Wigton's area and saw that the transmission lines were also down during that period. So I know you cannot give full context until the second quarterly report coming out in November, but can you give some context in terms of how long it took to get back those transmission lines up to speed, and in this case, post-burial update in terms of, are all of those turbines now back in operation?
Yes, so the transmission lines are two 69 kV lines that come from JPS that serves the 3 plants. Both lines were down for a couple of weeks. We had to await JPS to actually repair those lines. In the meantime, we carried out the repairs that were visible and obvious. However, there are certain repairs that we could not attempt until the turbines were actually energized. Once they were energized, we started to work around the clock, testing all of the turbines. Most of the damage was restricted to Wigton 1, the older plant. It's over 20 years, and mostly to what we call the nacelle covers, the fiberglass covers and so on. As I mentioned, we were within a couple of weeks up to over 80% production. We have some parts that we are still awaiting. We expect them to come in the next couple of weeks, and we will install those parts and start testing to bring the remaining turbines online.
So, just to clarify, so you're basically pointing out that now the transmission lines are back up, and as a result, the turbines cannot be energized, but you're waiting on a couple of parts to now complete more of the final repairs.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
No, so I was saying, earlier you mentioned, I want to confirm that the transmission lines are now back up, and the turbines are energized, but you're waiting on a couple of parts to complete the repairs at this point.
Correct. So the lines are back up. They have been back up for a while, so we're just awaiting the parts now.
Thank you very much. And this is my final query. So I recall it to have been last year, 2023 March, around that period, or 2023 financial year, Wigton would have purchased, I think it was a 1 acre or almost to that effect, property or lot by Ferry Pen. You know, the potential use of that property, you know, was kind of kept somewhat, I shouldn't say secret, but, you know, not fully divulged or discussed in depth. We saw the recent disclosure on the JSC that, you know, the company is now looking to put the property up for sale. So, you know, what was the original intention or thoughts behind that property when you purchased it? And do you have an idea of a timing as to when that project or the property should be sold?
So I'm going to ask perhaps Sean and maybe Michelle to answer, but before that, I just want to recognize that we really only have 45 minutes for questions, so we really want to limit it to really only 2 questions per person. They are good questions, but we really want a wider participation. So we'll move on after this question.
Diversification is not something new to Wigton's strategy, so we were looking at some other areas, and that Ferry Pen would have fit into that strategy at the time, but we have refocused and are really concentrating on renewable energy, so that no longer fits into exactly what we're doing right now. So we will be, I guess Sean will speak to the commercial process right now.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So what is happening is we're just reviewing a contract, and you will be seeing that property on the market very shortly. And we're based on the projection for for the disposal of it is by the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Ms. Treasurer.
Okay.
We're going to take a question online first. And then,
okay, so question received via the email that was disclosed. The losses from the associate company have been increasing since inception. What is the projected year that it is expected that the associate will become profitable?
Michelle, you want to perhaps give a little background that if some support?
Sure. Wigton invested in the associate in 2022. At that time, in 2022, we were selling, or Flash was selling, some BYD vehicles. It was the largest EV sales in Jamaica, 53 units. Since that time, since December 2022, they have discontinued that relationship, had to re-engage the market, onboard a new brands, and just started selling vehicles since April of this year, 2024. So because of that gap, there was a bit of losses that we're just trying to recover now. However, Flash has onboarded a new brand, Geely Motors. Their products are in Jamaica. Wigton has one of them. It's pickup trucks, fully electric, so we encourage everybody to look at Flash's website. So they are expecting right-hand drives to be in Jamaica in November, and we really think that will help boost the markets. They're not only selling in Jamaica since this year. We have engaged dealer networks. First, the left-hand drive. Jamaica, Bonaire, Curacao, and Cayman Islands now have Flash products. And for Jamaica, the shipment for November will also have right-hand drives for Barbados and St. Lucia. So Flash is actively building out a strong network, and we hope to see them profitable, or the projections are to be profitable by Q4 this year, or January to March 2025.
Any other questions from the room, shareholders?
Good morning, Livingston. It was my dream to become a Wigton farmer shareholders meeting, but thank God we're here today. So, all right. You can turn to 104, please. Page 104. Note C. You there, Mr. Chairman? You there?
Yeah, man.
All right.
You see, I have my auditor here. So
yeah, all right. A tenant's value growth rate of 3%, 2023, minus 3%, discount rate of 19%, 2023, minus 18%. Current value investment at the year end, slow investment associate. No, 2024 and 2023. Could you explain to us 117 million, 240,000, and 2020, that's 2024, and 2020 have 128 million,
Right.
104. Could I explanation it from, please?
All right, so the value that would have been carried on the books in 2023 is 128 million, which I think was close to the investment, right?
Yes.
But because
Not here,
of,
well. And not here, never.
yeah, so the value that was carried on the books was 128 million.
Yeah.
But because of, you know, how accountants operate, right, and they like to introduce new things and they talk about impairment and valuation and things. So when they evaluate based on what they see as the future profitability, because it was not doing so well, they said, you know what, let's write off a certain amount. Because one of the things you have to understand is that we don't want, what the accountants are saying, we don't want when it comes time to dispose of it, that you might have a reduction and you take everything one time. So let's take it piece. You understand?
Yeah.
But you heard what Michelle said before, that we expect profitability by the end of this year, the early next year. So guess what? You're supposed to get back it. Get it back, all right?
Yeah. You can't, last one, you can't turn to 100. This is in US dollars. I can't turn to a page of 100 and 100, page of 100. This is in US.
Yeah.
Profit before taxation, 2024 and 2023. Note I somewhere about.
Page 100?
Yeah, page 100. Note C.
Oh.
Page 100.
Yeah.
Note C. Current risk. See there? This is in the US.
Yeah.
All right, take it. Mr. Plus 4, plus 1 of. All right, go ahead, plus 4 first. 82,934,000 plus minus 1, 20,734,000. You could have explanation it. We see 6% in 2023, increase and a decrease. And you could have explanation it in equities price. You could have explanation it from, please.
All right, so
They have a decrease and an increase.
this is dealing with one of those things accountants ask us about, you know?
Yeah.
Tell us about risk and all of that. So I don't put, this deals with the exposure that we have to to currencies and certain assets or liabilities. So it's really just looking at what the sensitivity of that risk is, right, Krisha? Yeah.
Yeah, in
So-
the securities.
Yeah. In terms of certain assets and liabilities that we have exposure to, that because of the foreign currency component.
Because here you have an impact on it, you know. An impact on it increase of 6%, an increase and a decrease. Our 807 million, also 87 million and something in 2023, and next 57 million, 900 million. Any etiquette? You there? You see it? You see it, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, man. So I'm going to ask a younger person to do it.
All right, I didn't get, remind me of your name?
Livingston Young.
Okay, Mr. Young. All right, all this note is doing is saying for your assets and your liability, and these rates that you have been quoting, these are rates that we get from the Institute of Chartered Accountant. And as what we are doing is just putting a notes in the financial statement to say, in the event of anything occurring, this is the likely impact on the account. So it's not that it actually took place, it's just a sensitivity analysis that we're looking at to say, what if this happened, this would be the effect, but it did not impact our financials.
It's the same like the valuation that we spoke about. But, you know, the ICAJ sends out these things to members to justify their fees every year. You know, so.
Can I ask a question?
And he was a former president of the ICAJ.
But I didn't institute it.
I just one more question. I can ask, and earn US dollars different from in the Wigton farm, from foreign countries to Jamaica? In any farmer business?
If what?
You earn US dollars for growing the business.
No, we don't. We're taking chance. We don't, but we have exposure.
No, we don't. We actually, based on how you ask the question, we don't earn foreign exchange from any country outside of Jamaica. But what we do in terms of our billing, it is pegged to the US, but the revenue from the plants, it is pegged to the US, but paid in Jamaican dollar currency.
All right, answer that.
You're welcome.
You have questions online?
Yes, Chair. Taking another question from the virtual platform.
Yeah.
Can you provide guidance on the impact of the 50 megawatt bid on revenues, and what is the expected timeline to the realization of this revenue?
Yeah, respond to that.
Yes, so I'll start off by saying we have not been officially awarded. We have been pre-awarded the 50 megawatts, so it is hard to predict with absolute certainty when that revenue would start to actually flow into P&L. Sean, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Based on where we're at, no, not right now, but we'll definitely inform the market at the appropriate time.
Next question from the room.
Have any questions here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon, shareholders and panel. Two easy questions. This wonderful presentation is talking about profits. I hear 800 and something million or billion profit. 840 million was the profit, 840?
Approximately, yes.
Approximately. So what I want to know is, what is the stranglehold or the thing that's not allowing Wigton to be more aggressive? We have 14 parishes. How soon can we say we are solar powered, wind powered Jamaica before 2029 is complete? Because that's like around the corner. And the other question is, as a shareholder, actually Darren Dixon is my name, shareholder, how is my value for share going? What is it at now? I mean, I'm not even sure. To say that 4 or 5 years down the line, it's going to be like a whopping, let's say 1,000 Jamaican for one share, eh? Can I seriously look at it like that? To say that 14 parishes, in the next 4 to 5 years, Jamaica is going to be renewable energy powered and stop buying this thing about oil. That's my two questions. Thanks.
Yes. Let me start by saying, our primary objective here, the leadership team and the board of directors, is to ensure shareholder value, to improve shareholder value. So that is what drives us in our day-to-day decision making. As I had mentioned during my presentation, we are moving from a position where we were basically an operating company, a wind operating company, that operated on a special license through a power purchase agreement. We are actually moving out of that now. That is why we participated in the tender by the government. If we do get that 50 megawatt, and we are optimistic about that, we will certainly, by the time we have implemented that 50 megawatt, would have almost doubled the capacity of the business. So that is one avenue. We intend to participate in all future renewable energy tenders through the GPE, and as previously mentioned, we are going to be moving very aggressively into the commercial and industrial area in terms of solar and other renewable products and services. So that second pillar I spoke about, which was growth through revenue diversification, is something that we're going to be pursuing very, very aggressively. And as I said before, we have started to make the necessary changes in our processes, in our systems, in our marketing. We have started to retrain our teams. We have started to infuse our organization with new skills and new capabilities to ensure that we actually lead in that area. So rest assured, as a shareholder, that we are on the right path.
Oh, I'm going to use the mic. Add residential to that. Add residential to that industrial and commercial thing, because a lot of householders need to have solar-driven energy. We're tired of this oil thing. JPS is a joke. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
have online. Do you have any more?
It's very similar, but I read it just the same.
The same. Anything else in the audience here? Christian?
I'm so sorry. Kerry Berry, shareholder. I just want to say on behalf of all the shareholders and the Investing Jamaica, congratulations on your results. They're absolutely phenomenal. And the question I would like to ask is, I know that we have a projection for 2030 to be on the grid 50%. How far along is that coming? And I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit distracted. And how far along is that coming? And the sensitization of Jamaica towards renewables and the partnerships, because I realize that it is the leasing of the equipment and the putting of the energy nearer to the source of use that increases the profits. So I'm asked, so the question is, how far along are we, and are we doing any sensitization or awareness of the public, or to bring in these big firms to partner with us so that we can have a full rolling plan going forward? Thank you.
Thank you. So generally speaking, the Ministry of Energy has the responsibility for policy development and policy direction. And they are currently in the process of reviewing their energy policy. As I mentioned, there are some more ambitious, or should I say aggressive targets that the government is focusing on. The ministry also has the responsibility for producing what is called an integrated resource plan. And that plan looks at the projected demand, energy demand, and aim to match that demand with generation. So they have a program where they look at the mix of generation that will be necessary to serve the demand to get to those targets. The 100 megawatt bid that we participated in is a part of that process. We expect that the government will be coming out very soon with 168 megawatts in addition to that. That is their drive towards the objective that I had mentioned, which is 50% by 2030. That is one part of it. That is the utility scale part that, typically the larger utility scale producers will participate in that process, and is a competitive process. Wigton, as I mentioned, will certainly be taking advantage of those opportunities, and we will participate in the bids going forward, as well as developing our own markets in terms of in the commercial and industrial space.
So basically the question was, the 80% of companies and entities in Jamaica that use the energy, are those being brought into partnership? That's basically what I'm asking. Because there's always a 20-80 rule. There are entities in Jamaica that use 80%, but they're 20% of the population, but they use 80% of the usage. So that's what I'm asking you. How are we tying that together? That's what I'm asking.
Thank you for that question. From a Wigton's point of view, we see that 80% of the commercial and industrial customers as an opportunity for us. And that is why we have said specifically that we are going to be focusing on that here. And I'm going to ask our Chief Commercial Officer, Norman Nar, perhaps to expound a little bit on our approach.
Thanks. So part of your question was trying to get an indication of how far are we along the path of renewable. And I don't want to quote on behalf of MSET, but we're not at the 50% as yet. So we're somewhere there, and you can look that up. So I don't want to independently comment on that. As it relates to our thrust in terms of focusing on that 20%, I heard the shareholder spoke about, residential. Part of our interest is that the 20% come largely from utility scale our commercial and industrial clients. And so we're actively looking at how we engage those clients, looking at technology partnerships that's going to enable us to, bring the solutions to that space. And so in the coming weeks, months, you'll be seeing a lot of effort focusing on a number of key sectors in the commercial and industrial space, whether it is in the manufacturing, the hospitality, and we'll keep some of that secret sauce that will see us unfolding in the coming months. We'll also be looking at strong financial partners. You heard about the partnerships with international financiers to enable us to reach into the market space and provide attractive rates. So those lease financing options that we talk about to make it more amenable for these organizations. So that's largely my focus and responsibility, and hold me to that come next year.
And the second part is the awareness of the general public.
So just on the awareness, so I think there are two aspects to it. Of course, I make a separation between, the government's role in terms of utility scale and the bid process and so on, which is all public. I intimated in my presentation that we will be seeing a different Wigton going forward, and we have signaled the market by the trade name change from Wigton Windfarm to Wigton Energy. You're going to be seeing a lot more promotion by Wigton in that market space to support Norman's trust into the commercial and industrial area. So I'd mentioned that we are starting to put up billboards. We have engaged a marketing company. The first part of that is going to be just building the awareness. We are doing our own assessment in terms of the opportunities. We are doing our segment analysis and so on, and we're going to have targeted approaches for different industries and so on. So you're going to see a lot more of that happening, and you're going to see a lot more of Wigton in that space.
All right, thank you. We have a question online.
Yes, Chair. Yes, I'll take. Mr. Young, we're going to take the question online
We're going to take it online first
and
and
then
then
we'll
come back
to you. Okay. It's prefaced by a comment. When I invested in Wigton in April 2019, I expected the share price to be around $15 by now. The current price is $1.06 with a 52-week high of $1.29. And this is approximately 5 years later. Question, is it the debt structure or organization structure which are contributing to the opportunities constraining the company's growth? And what corrective actions are being considered or implemented to ensure income growth and hence increased equity value and reduced debt?
Can I take that? And I'm going to maybe call on Dan for a little help here too, but during that time, remember we had a pandemic. We also had interest rates increasing, and if you look at the performance of stock markets around the world and share prices in Jamaica, a lot of them have not done even as well as Wigton. Wigton, year to date, has gone up by 31%. So, Dan, I don't know if you want to give us a little more on that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the best performing stock this year for sure. We're excited about the change in management, new CEO, now new head of market development. So I'm really excited about the future for Wigton. We've got a lot of cash. We've got a 50 megawatt project that we're waiting to be awarded. I expect that award to happen very soon. And then we think within another 6 months we'll have another tender coming forward. So I think, to see a stock increase in value by 100% in the last 5 years is one thing. To see it jump by 30% in the last 6 months is another thing. And to look at the trajectory for Wigton, I think it's amazing. So we just had the best year ever, $840 million profit. We expect to see that profit, Chairman, exceeding $1 billion going into the future. And so Wigton is definitely poised for growth. The comment about debt, there's nothing wrong with having debt. Wigton has a very healthy level of debt, very lowly leveraged, quite frankly, almost net debt zero when you consider the cash, $5 billion debt, $3 billion cash. So Wigton is in a healthy place to grow. Only about 64 megawatts, made $800 million profit. Imagine we're going to add 50 megawatts in the next year, If we're lucky, add another 50 megawatts a year afterwards, so you can extrapolate. We're on our path to $1 billion profit within the next 2 years, I would say, Chairman. And with the new CEO and team, I really think Wigton's potential for growth is significant. Maybe not $1,000 a share, maybe not $15 a share in the next year or two, but the potential to double or triple the stock price in the next 2 or 3 years, I think, is definitely there. Thank you.
I was hoping he was saying 1,000 US.
And I just want to add to that, directors, and we have 30,000 plus shareholders of the company. And we're going to depend on you, the 30,000, to pressure government to allow Wigton to be able to expand and spend the billions that we have holding, because that is where our limitation is. I'm not going to beat around the bush. We need to pressure government every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Government, we need lower cost electricity. Wigton is part of that answer for you, and you're part of it. So you have to help us as the directors and leaders of this company, because we want to do it, we can do it, but we're tied by our feet. All right? Thank you.
A question here. Yeah. We have 8 minutes to go, so please be prudent.
Mic check. Livingston again, Mr. Chairman. Page 95. It's a company. Note 8, credit risk. You there, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I'm here.
Maximize exposure of credit risk. Trading and other receivables, financial assets of fair value, other income achievement, cash subject to return, cash and cash equivalent. Now, explain to it 2024 and 2023. What made up this trading and other receivables of 24,356,000 in 2024?
Sean, this answer is really the money from
JPS, yes. So Chair answered it for me, but I'll just repeat it so that you can hear. So that changes. You remember earlier you asked about our income. So what happened when we invoice JPS, we don't get the money at the same time. So there will always be a 1 month lag in receivables. So that line item that you spoke about is actually our receivable from JPS for that month, which in this case would be the month of March.
The other one is the financial assets, your assets. Financial asset in fair value of 13,450,000 Just elaborate.
So that is an investment in Cygnus that the company made. So we bought shares we just bought a couple shares in Cygnus Real Estate.
Couple shares like how much?
Small amount.
Yes. Hold on. Yeah.
All right. So let's go online, and then we have some people at the back there that didn't ask. David, you're going to ask them to. Yeah, right. Let's go online first quickly.
I understand that the profit for this year is significantly supported by the income tax policy change, 33.33% to 25%. What would have been the profit level without this change, and give a conservative expected profit for the next financial year? Oh, he's asking that we give a conservative.
I think the impact was about 300 million, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it would have been about $500 and something million, which would still have been an increase over the year before. But we expect our projections for this year is that we're going to surpass that.
Yes.
Amount. Yeah.
We don't want to be specific on that in terms of providing a forward-looking statement, but we are optimistic that we're going to be in that range.
As you saw from the first quarter results. So a young lady at the back of the question there.
Good morning, everyone. Caroline Green, shareholder. I just have a very brief and simple question. What's the main source of income for the company? Just in case I missed it somewhere.
Okay, no problem. The main source of revenue for the company is the sale of energy via wind energy to Jamaica Public Service Company Limited.
All right, thank you. Another lady at the back had a question there, David, before.
Pleasant afternoon to everyone and to the protocols observed. The question I want to ask, I know we are all here about wealth and wealth creation. I need to find out if there is a foundation that Wigton is a part of in this country, like how we have like a Bill Gates Foundation that helps people. So I know God loves when we have growth that we give, so I want to know if there is a foundation or there's one that you're thinking of to be involved in. That's my question.
All right, thank you. So Wigton Energy or Wigton Windfarm, the legal name, does not have a foundation per se, but we take our corporate and social responsibility very, very seriously. For example, with the recent hurricane, we participated in a number of community efforts. We worked with the police station in the area. We worked with the community. The school, we gave a significant contribution to the rebuilding of its Rose Hill primary. We actually went down there and we interacted with the teachers and the principals. We contributed to the rebuilding of the schools. So we participate as Wigton Energy in a number of corporate social responsibility. It is something we'll consider as the organization grow, whether or not we create an entity, a separate foundation entity, but that is something that we'll consider in the future as the business grows.
All right. David, quickly.
Thank you very much. So, so earlier, you mentioned that Wigton is diversifying, and there was the investment in Flash, mention of the solar leasing, and some new facilities. So the first question is, I know you're still trying to focus on Jamaica, where the dominant market presence is, and we're seeing more RFPs coming out. But how has the Wigton board explored or looked at other opportunities in the Caribbean and Central America?
We are looking at those, right? So I'm gonna ask Mariam to speak to that, since Mariam has not discussed anything yet, but Mariam has been actively looking at it.
First of all, thank you so much for being such an engaged shareholder base, and thank you for the questions. Love to see young people asking questions as well. From the Finance and Investment Committee standpoint, the first thing that Wigton did was to ensure that we have the focus on how to expand beyond Jamaica. And the best step when you're taking focus is to put somebody in place, in charge, who has that direct accountability, in addition to our CEO and Deputy CEO. So we have our Chief Business Development, we have our Chief Commercial Officer, Norman Nair, so he's very focused there. Secondly, we have shareholders who have extensive experience outside of Jamaica. One recently joined us this year. They've done energy projects in a number of countries in the Caribbean and in South America. In my prior hat, when I was an investor with Portland, I've invested alongside them and we've done well. So that's two. And then the third thing is the management and the board had a recent strategic retreat. And at that retreat, we really focused the strategy on who are we now and who do we want to be. 5 years ago, we were very focused on wind. Now we're focused more broadly on all types of generation in the renewable space, hence the Wigton Energy instead of just Wigton. Within that context, instead of diversifying into multiple sectors, we're diversifying in two ways. One, multiple generation technologies within renewable, and two, geographically. So I think I can say this because we haven't decided. We're looking, for example, recently at a project in Suriname through one of our partners that we've developed in other projects. I just went to Suriname last week for the first time. Lots going on in Guyana and Suriname. And so we'll see where that takes us. We do take a very efficient and diligent lens about what we're going to invest in versus not. To the discussion, Chair, and the chair of our audit committee just had around the returns. But there's a very structured process on how we're expanding the business. But I like your question, how you make money? So as we try to make more money, the two things to leave here today with is one, we're expanding into not just wind, but solar, and maybe we'll do other renewable generation technologies, and two, in other geographies. And the key person who we're all supporting but will be focused on this 100% of his time is our Chief Commercial Officer, Norman Nair. So thanks for the question. Where did he go? But him gone. So funny. Thanks for the question.
All right, thank you. I think that was the last question, given the time. All right, we'll just do one more. This young lady here.
Based on your financials, morning, afternoon everyone. Based on financials, I'm Georgia Silvera, shareholder. Based on your financials, your profit before tax has declined year on year for the last 4 years. And when I looked at it, the administrative expenses account predominantly for that. Drilling down into the administrative expenses, I realized that your staff costs, although the number of employees remain the same, your staff costs increased by 30%. So is it that you have paid your staff, gave them an increase of 30%, 2023 to 2024? One. Number two, your audit fees also increased. Were there any unusual work that was taking place where there's significant increase in audit fees? And an explanation for why, because we can't factor in the tax because of the legislative change, which would have made the books look healthier. So your profit before tax has been declining and contributed mainly by your administrative expenses. Why 30% given the climate, and why the audit fees increased significantly?
So I'm going to ask our CFO to answer the question, but let me just make a perhaps more general statement. So I think one of the things I'd like our shareholders to leave here with today is that the Wigton that existed 2 to 3 years ago is not the Wigton that is going to exist 3, 4, 5 years going forward. We have spoken about a new strategy, about a strategy of growth through diversification, and it is going to require some changes in the fundamental operations of the business. It means that we're going to be looking at new systems. It means that we're going to be infusing the organization with new staff. It means that we have to look at the organization design. In another 2 years, the business is going to be twice the size it is today. And so it means that we won't be running with the same level of operating expenditure that existed before. Before, what we had was a wind farm that was managed by a cadre of engineers. Going forward, we're going to have marketing, we're going to have business development, we're going to have to be looking at HR function. And some of the costs that you're seeing right now is an investment in the additional staff, it's an investment in technology, it's an investment in building the capabilities that allow us to lead in that particular area. I'm going to ask Sean to perhaps talk specifically to some of the areas that you mentioned.
All right, I think Gary answered the question for me, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. So you spoke about the fact that the number of persons remain the same. However, you're seeing an increase in staff costs. So let me just explain to you what would have transpired. From time to time, as in any organization, you'll have persons leaving an organization. We operate in a very technical area. So, for example, on the plant, we had some technician that resigned, but we had to replace them, and at the time, based on how and where the organization is going, what was done is that engineers were employed instead of technicians. And it's not just for the current existing situation that we have, but as well as where the organization is going based on what Gary just explained. Included also in staff costs is provisions that we have to make. So for example, we'll make provision for vacation that were not taken as at year end. So it's not necessary, it won't lead to a necessary outflow of cash, but it's just based on the accounting standard, we have to make the provision. And again, based on the employment contracts, if there's anything that is due at year end and we did not pay, we also have to make a provision for it based on the contracts that are in place. As it relates to audit fee, I know my auditor is in the audience. I don't know if she wants to take it, but I'll help out based on what transpired.
I think you should take it.
At the end of the day, although you saw that approximately 24% increase, we did some serious negotiation. I'm sure Tricia and team is not happy, but we called on the chair, we called on everybody to help us out to do some negotiation. But what actually happened, and we saw it in our organization, not picking up for the auditors, where they spoke about the inflationary adjustments that came along with post-burial. They had to implement systems to ensure that what happened, not burial, but COVID, what happened with COVID and how they had to basically pivot in order to help us to ensure that we meet the Jamaica Stock Exchange deadlines for reporting were done. So these are some of the increases that you would have seen. But as I highlighted in the report earlier, one of the things that I want to just remind, management is very cognizant of increasing costs and how shareholders view it. But if you look at the overall total expenses, we actually decreased by a 0.2%. There was not an overall increase in expenses. So we're managing as much as possible, but we also have plans for the future, as Gary outlined.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, the time allotted for questions, unfortunately, has been exhausted. However, we do encourage everyone to send questions in to us. Remember that you don't have to wait until an AGM to ask a question, right? If you have a question, just send it in, and it will be asked. And it is not only your right, but your duty to ask the questions during the year also. All right, so we'll now move on to consider the resolutions that are before us. As indicated prior, the audited financial statements for the year ended March 31, 2024, and the reports of the auditors and the directors thereon were circulated to all members prior to the meeting, and Mrs. Smith da Silva has read the auditor's report. I now ask that the director's report, which appears on page 10 of the 2024 annual audit report, be tabled and taken as read. Everyone is fine with that? Yes? Okay, thank you for agreeing to that. So resolution number 1, shareholders, we have a motion that the audited financial statements for the year ended March 31, 2024, and the reports of the auditors and directors thereon be and are hereby adopted. We'll ask for a motion and a seconder. So
Seconder, could you repeat your name, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We now ask you to vote on resolution number 1. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. And we'll do so by a show of hands internally, right? Okay, the results are in and the resolution has been carried. Thank you, everyone. Resolution number 2, may we have a motion that the dividend of $0.005943 per ordinary share paid on February 27th, 2024 be and is hereby ratified and declared final for the year ended March 31, 2024. I know we have some pre-voting here, right? But we want to get a motion moved and a second also.
Second?
You're the mover. We have a seconder?
No, we're the mover.
Oh, Mark. Hey, what are you saying?
Martin. So the motion has been moved by David Rose and seconded by Mark Martin.
Barton.
Barton. Mark Barton.
Okay, shareholders, we now ask you to vote on resolution number 2. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. And I declare the resolution has been carried. The next item is to elect directors retiring by rotation. And I now ask our director and chairman of the Nominations, Compensation and HR Committee, Mr. Omar Azan, to take the chair for the purpose of considering resolution number 3 as it concerns me, a director retiring by rotation and being up for re-election.
Thank you, Chairman. In accordance with Article 101 of the Articles of Incorporation of the company, the directors retiring from office by rotation and who, being eligible, offers himself for re-election are 1. Mr. Dennis Chung, 2. Mr. Hugh Johnson, 3. Mrs. Mariam McIntosh Robinson, and 4. Mr. Dan Theod. All the directors mentioned have excellent attendance and participation records, and the board is satisfied that the directors continue to make a valuable contribution to the board and company and have demonstrated their commitment to continue to serve. Mr. Chung, a chartered accountant by profession, is a general secretary of the Jamaica Football Federation and currently serves as chairman of GK Capital Management Limited and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. He is also director of Petrojam Limited and a Justice of the Peace for the parish of St. Andrew. He has been the chairman of the board since January 12, 2024, and his main areas of expertise are senior management, business, leadership, accounting and finance, corporate governance, and risk management. Shareholders, may we now have a motion that Mr. Dennis Chung, who retires by rotation, be and is hereby re-elected as a director of the company.
The motion has been moved by Mark Barton and seconded by David Rose.
Correct. So we heard the names, and we're going to go online for voting now. Shani?
So shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 3. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes.
The results are in, and I declare the resolution carried. I now hand over the chairmanship back to Mr. Chung. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, shareholders, for the vote of confidence. Continuing with the re-election of directors, I'll first go to Mr. Johnson, who is a certified automotive engineer who spent several years working in the field of motor vehicle assessment before embarking on a career in agriculture. He also serves as the director of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation and is the Vice Prime Minister of the State of the African Diaspora. His main areas of expertise are senior management, business leadership, and technical energy. May we now have a motion on resolution number 4 that Hugh Johnson, who retires by rotation, be and is hereby re-elected a director of the company.
The motion has been moved by David Rose and seconded by Clinton Allen.
Clinton Allen. Shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 4. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and I declare the resolution carried. Congratulations, Hugh. Okay, Mrs. Mariam McIntosh Robinson is a global financial services leader with decades. I know she don't look like it, but so I will just say like a few months of experience, right? As a P&L leader, investor, and advisor to leading companies in the US and Caribbean. Most recently, she was a senior executive at a late-stage fintech firm in the US, and prior to this, president and CEO of First Global Bank Limited, in Jamaica. She currently serves on several regional and global boards in Canada and the Caribbean in regulated sectors, that is insurance, banking, energy, and telecommunication, including Parkland Corporation, Digicel Group, Jane Bank Limited, and the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. She is the chairperson of the Finance and Investment Committee of the board, and their main areas of expertise are senior management, business leadership, accounting and finance, human resource management, change management, and performance management, corporate governance, strategic planning, and risk management. So we ask now for a motion that Maria McIntosh Robinson, who retires by rotation, I see all the ladies getting up, retires by rotation, be and is hereby re-elected as director of the company. Gentlemen, please do not oppose.
Moved by Christine Rowe, seconded by Caroline Reed. Green.
I don't know if I have to ask a vote on this one, Mariam, but shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 5. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your vote. The results are in, and as we expected, it has been carried. I think they have the wrong vice presidential candidate in the U.S. It wouldn't be so close. Mr. Dan Theok is a chartered accountant licensed by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, and is currently the Senior Vice President of Investment Banking at Mayberry Investments Limited. He is also a director of MCS Group Limited, a wholly owned subsidiary of Jamaica National Group Limited. He is the chairman of the Audit and Risk Committee of the board, and his main areas of expertise are senior management, business leadership, accounting and finance, technical, energy, business development and business acquisitions, strategic planning and risk management. We ask now for a motion that Dan Theok, who retires by rotation, be and is hereby re-elected as director of the company. And the ladies are getting up again, Dan.
Please stand on the left side, while my left. Trisha Mills. So the motion has been moved by Trisha Mills and seconded by Karen.
See a lady fighting Karen over Shackelford. There to second that.
Seconded by Karen Shackelford. Thank you.
Okay, so shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 6 for the ladies' man. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and I declare the resolution carried. At this point, I would like to congratulate the directors who have been re-elected. Okay, resolution number 7, remuneration of independent or non-executive directors. May we have a motion that the amount included in the audited financial statements of the company for the year ended March 31, 2024, as remuneration to the non-executive directors for their services as directors be and is hereby approved, and I ask for the motion to be moved and seconded.
Motion. Motion moved by Mark Barton and seconded by David Rose.
You can vote twice, all right? Shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 7. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and I declare the resolution carried. On the same matter, on the resolution number 8, may we have a motion that the Nominations, Compensation and Human Resources Committee of the Board of Directors is authorized until the conclusion of the next AGM to fix the fees of the non-executive directors. Can we have a motion, David Rose, and seconded by Livingston Young? Shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 8. Shareholders online, you have 45. The results are in, and I declare the resolution carried. We now turn to the appointment and remuneration of the company's auditors. May we please have a motion that PricewaterhouseCoopers Chartered Accountants, having agreed to continue in office as auditors, be and are hereby appointed auditors for the company to hold office until the conclusion of the next AGM at a remuneration to be fixed by the directors of the company. And I'm told that people at the back are displeased that they're not the ones being recognized. The motion. Move the motion and second. So, Cynthia Tingling. Marcia Nichols, yeah.
Miss Tingling? Miss Tingling? Are you a shareholder? Are you a shareholder? Yes. Very well. Thank you.
All right. Shareholders, we cast your votes on resolution number 9. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. Okay, the results are in. I declare the resolution carried. There was great enthusiasm to carry your appointment, Tricia. So, congrats. Okay, we'll now move to special business. Shareholders, we have two matters of special business to consider. Notably, these two matters, being special resolutions, will require not less than 75% of the votes cast to be carried. The first relates to a proposed change of the registered name of the company. As you know, Wigton Windfarm Limited started as a generator of electricity solely from wind power. Over the last 2 years, however, the company has been venturing into solar projects and now has a firm strategic mandate of continuing its foray into sources of renewable energy beyond wind. Consistent with our business strategy, we wish to change the name of the company to Wigton Energy Limited. The name has been reserved at the Office of the Registrar of Companies, and we have also adopted a new logo, as you would have seen. May we now have a motion that with the consent of the Registrar of Companies, the company's name be changed from Wigton Windfarm Limited to Wigton Energy Limited, and we see a lot of people wanting to move the motion there. So, and then we'll take someone from the back also.
I'm not seeing a Dave Wilson. And seconded by Dave Wilson.
All right, shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 10. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. Okay, the results are in, and I declare the resolution carried. Shareholders, I'm going to ask the young, energetic company secretary to read resolution number 11. As a part of the interview to work at Wigton, you have to pass an energy test. So it doesn't apply to the directors though, right? So Shanique.
Resolution 11, so the second. The second matter of special business involves the proposed amendments to the company's articles of incorporation. When the company was converted to a public company, the articles of incorporation provided that no person would be permitted to hold more than 10% of the issued ordinary share capital of the company. This ceased to be of any effect on April 17, 2024 by virtue of the provisions of the said articles. It is now necessary to modify the articles of the company to remove the entrenched articles and references and cross-references to them. May we have a motion that the articles of incorporation of the company be amended as follows: by deleting articles 3, 4, 5, and 6 in their entirety, by deleting the last sentence in Article 16, which reads as follows: for the avoidance of doubt, it is hereby declared that this article shall not apply to the provisions of Articles 3, 4, and 5 of these articles. by deleting the last sentence in Article 37, which reads as follows. So long as the entrenched articles shall remain in effect, the directors shall also refuse to register a transfer of shares if by registering same, the result would be that the transferee would become a relevant person as defined in Article 4 of these articles, except in the case of a permitted person as likewise defined. By deleting the following words appearing in parentheses in Article 42, subject to the provisions of Articles 3, 4, and 5 above. By deleting the following words at the start of the first sentence in Article 43, subject to the provisions of Articles 3, 4, and 5 above, and capitalizing the word any, with which the sentence would commence after such deletion. By deleting the following words at the start of the first sentence in Article 44, subject to the provisions of Articles 3, 4, and 5 above, and capitalizing the word a, with which the sentence would commence after such deletion. By deleting the following words at the start of the first sentence in Article 70, save in the case of voting rights which are suspended pursuant to Articles 3 and 4 above, and capitalizing the word if, with which the sentence would commence after such deletion. By deleting the following words from Article 75, and subject further to Articles 3 and 4 above, and by deleting the following words at the start of the first sentence in Article 79, save in the case of voting rights which are suspended pursuant to Articles 3 and 4 above, and capitalizing the word no, with which the sentence would commence after such deletion. Motion.
Okay, ask for a motion.
Motion by David Rose, seconded by Lady Standing. Janet, seconded by Janet Dan.
All right, thank you. Shareholders, we invite you to cast your votes on resolution number 11. Shareholders online, you have 45 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and I declare the resolution carried. Thank you, shareholders. That takes care of the business of resolutions. At this time now, we are going to terminate the meeting. And shareholders, this concludes the agenda. Thank you for your continued support of Wigton Energy, your company, and your attendance and participation in this meeting. Thank you to our registrar and technical audiovisual solutions team. I also want to express gratitude to the hard-working Wigton team and my fellow directors who, to show our commitment to renewable energy, we're going to start riding every day, right, cycling. We continue our work towards increasing shareholder value, very important for us, year over year, through ambitious targets which also aid in making the world more sustainable. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, if you have questions, just send it in to us and we'll get them answered. All the very best. Thank you.